struggling salmon fisherman. His most recent work, which was a feature-length documentary, Homeless in Woodstock, last night, it focused on the needs of 5 homeless Woodstockers whose needs were unmet during the COVID lockdown. And I just met him yesterday for the first time. I think he's very kind and very philosophical, and he has a sharp eye with great grit and depth, as we've seen in this film. So I want to thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Chris. So I guess the question and answers are now open.
Yeah. Why did the,
Wait,
what reason?
one. And I will ask, stand up, raise your hand, stand up, I point. Chris! And then you speak.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What reason did the DA give for wanting to stop the film?
Oh, the DA?
Yeah. What could possibly be the reason?
I wasn't going to call the DA because to speak to a DA, they have to subpoena you. They can't. She left a voicemail, and I've had enough drama with the other screening. I didn't need any more drama in my life. I like to put my drama on the screen. So I didn't call her back, but I did call the media, and I told them to call her. Let them find out. You know, that's really none of my business.
So then nobody knows why.
Yeah.
Not yet.
God
Not yet.
almighty. This is like cover up and balls up. It's ridiculous.
Thank you.
All right, next question. Would you like-
I'm just confused. How
Also,
the-
please tell us your
Sorry.
name. Yeah.
Yeah, Christine Rollet, I'm a Woodstock resident. I'm confused if they found for Saugerties that it's the DEC that found that it was contaminated and it had to be removed. Why, when it moves from Saugerties to Woodstock, it's no longer the case?
Yeah, so the question is, back in 2019, the DEC had done an investigation of the Carolus facility in Saugerties. There were actually 3 different locations. And in May of 2019, the DEC did go into those 3 facilities. They tested the film material, had it analyzed at a laboratory, got the results back in June of 2019, and found that it contained a variety of things: PCBs, heavy metals, hydrocarbons, pesticides. And so shortly after that, on July 1st of 2019, based partly on those test results, the DEC ordered Carolus to remove all of the material from the Saugerties facilities and have it disposed of properly. And he was also ordered that he provide 5 days notice to the DEC before he removed any material from his facilities. It was only 6 months later, less than 6 months later, that he began transferring some of that material to Shady, to 10 Church Road.
4 truckloads.
And your question is,
Oh no, 200.
why would the DEC allow that?
Why did the
And that's one of our central questions today. We really don't have good answers. Now, we are in contact with the DEC. We are going to try to get that question answered and some related questions, but so far we don't have a good answer from the DEC. One thing, you know, I'm continuing to learn things myself every week on this situation. And one of the things that we learned just a few months ago is that when, you recall in the film, it was January of 2020 when Supervisor McKenna was notified of the dumping. He immediately notified the DEC and asked them to look into it. Based on a letter from this past June from the DEC Region 3 Director, we know that they did send an inspector out almost immediately. That in that first week, or maybe the second week of January 2020, they inspected the material and they made a determination at that time, based on their visual inspection, no testing or anything, that material was exempt from state regulation.
Yeah.
That because it consisted of only this recognizable large pieces of asphalt and concrete and rock and brick, that the DEC has an exemption in the regulations that allows that to be used as fill on residential property. Now, we don't agree with that determination, but it raises other questions too, and that is if the DEC made that determination in the very earliest stages of dumping in early January 2020, and they had, the public was not informed. No one knew that the DEC had decided that back in 2020. And the dumping continued for another 6 months after that. And so I'm still sort of having this sink in, that the DEC actually knew about the dumping, had inspected it, and had decided that they would allow it under state law. And what's baffling to me is they knew it was a residential property, that it's zoned residential. They knew the material was contaminated from their own testing in Saugerties. They know, or should have known, that it overlies the drinking water aquifer, and that the Canigliaros themselves have a drinking water well on their property at 10 Church, and all of the neighbors do too. And so we don't understand it either. I mean, that's one of our questions, and I think it's a really important one.
Give us names and addresses.
Yeah, I mean, they're either ridiculously inefficient at their job, or they're just, they're being paid.
Actually, we do have some plans about approaching the DEC, our neighborhood group, but we can actually talk about those things after. Any more questions? Yeah.
Yes.
Your name, please.
My name is Marie Caruso. I live in Woodstock. My question actually has to do with the technical quality of the film. Why was the music, the background music, so loud as to interfere with the dialogue, especially when Alex Boloto was speaking? It made it is there anything that can be done about that, or how did that happen?
No, I like that song too much.
I love the music.
I'm only joking. Sometimes when you're shooting, editing, you lose sense of perspective. Honestly, I mean, the sound with Alex was perfect up until I started messing around with it. And then it was cancelled I think at Street Cinema, and the perfectionist in me went back, and I had nobody. Usually when you're making a documentary, you have a crew of at least 4 or 5. Sometimes there's a lot more than that. I had to do it all by myself, and that's the answer, really. That's the best answer I could give you.
So you could fix it.
Oh, absolutely, in 2 seconds.
Fund our documentarian.
I couldn't hear.
Please, your name.
Fund Frank, give it a Frank. Whatever you have,
Fund
give it a
both.
Frank.
Fund both.
Is there any possibility this could be linked to social media or streaming?
Absolutely. It's already on the internet, but it's private because I'm trying to get people like you to come and talk. Because documentaries alone don't change a damn thing. What changes things is people getting together afterwards and talking, and pass the email list, and let's stay in contact about this, and let's change this. But my documentary won't change it alone. We'll change it by continuing to get together and walking maybe from the dump to the Como property and demand that this this waste be removed from on top of our aquifer.
No, I agree. The only problem is we have an election coming up.
Yeah, but actually.
Well, look, listen. If you were going home tonight and you saw a baby on the sidewalk, and its mother was on the Woodstock Green, and you were on the sidewalk, would you go and tell the mother that her baby was on the sidewalk, or would you pick the baby up and bring the baby to the mother? That's what I'm saying. The drinking water is our baby. We can't put it off for any reason, not for 1 day longer.
Oh, I'm not asking.
Because of an election coming up. This election will be long forgotten if our drinking water gets polluted. Nobody will care what happened in this election if our drinking water is poisoned, like a lot of different towns in the USA at the moment.
No, I agree. My point was the opposite, that there's an urgency, that's all.
There's an urgency, yeah. Oh, sorry, I thought you meant, we shouldn't
Oh,
do this.
no, quite the opposite.
You meant the opposite. Okay, I picked you up.
There'll
Be
be
more
placards and
proactive,
things.
have more people.
In other words, I'd like more people to see this before the
Well,
election.
please be in touch with us.
Absolutely.
And we can continue that conversation.
Thank you.
Because if you'd like to volunteer your services in spreading the word and the film, we welcome your efforts.
Is Bill drinking
Your name,
his
please,
well water?
Stan.
Oh, sorry. Summer, Sled Hill. Is Bill drinking his well water?
No idea.
Actually, Bill is upgrading it. So the way that the aquifer runs and it's actually, it's like this on a slight slant. So those of us, I'm like 2 doors up, we're the lucky ones.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter, it's still.
Yeah.
Just kind of a follow-up to my explanation a minute ago. It's back in January, I mentioned the DEC's determined that it is allowable under state law. That did not change the fact that at that time and still today, it's illegal under town law. Okay, so the town, the dumping was still not lawful under town law. It doesn't matter what the DEC thought at the time.
I have a question.
Question?
Oh, I'm Jane Young. I have a question.
You wanna stand up too? Sorry,
I'm
just
not-
so the people in the
Okay,
back. can hear.
I'm not quite sure, how the town engineer made the determination that it didn't have to be removed and convinced Bill that it didn't have to be removed after he was so convinced it had to be removed by all the other reports previously.
So the question is, why?
Can I-
How did he make the
Why didn't he change the
determination
law?
that the fill didn't have to be removed?
He's
Town
she's-
engineer.
She's asking how did they change their mind from a complete removal to Plan E?
To a plan.
That's another one of the central questions we don't have a good answer to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for several years, and you heard it here, Supervisor McKenna basically said the plan is to have it removed, and
Right.
Yeah.
we have a legal mechanism to do that.
But I mean, was there a paper filed with stats and, you know, why it was then allowed to be there?
Yeah, there's
Actually, one
gotta
of the
be
things in the
somewhere.
film, if you noticed, is that they said and actually I think they were going to inform the neighbors of the new plan, and the way we found out about it was through the bulldozers, we heard them, so there was
But
no.
did I see on there too, Joe Zarnecki, Reynolds Lane, that the town board did not approve the Plan E? So who approved it, just
Yes,
Bill?
so the question is, there was this one-page plan, Plan E, that the property owner at 10 Church put together. And the question is, who approved it? It was, we heard it was approved, but there's no evidence that it was approved by a vote of the town board. There's nothing in writing that says who approved it or when it was approved.
So that it wasn't approved. If they can't prove it was approved, it's not approved.
So that's another question.
Other question, the gentleman in the back, that's you, stand up,
Yeah,
and your name please.
hi, Joe Teitler. I was just wondering, in this lead up to the election, has any of the local media raised these issues with McKenna?
Yeah, I can answer that if somebody, you wanna answer that? The local media has treated this extensively, both with McKenna and in the Albany Times Union, in Radio Kingston, there's actually a really great interview, both of Alex and then of Bill McKenna, because they wanted to show both sides. So there has been a lot of press on
But
this.
what does he say about all this?
Well, listen to the Radio Kingston.
If you go to protectwoodstockwater.com, it's available there.
Thank you.
All of the resources of all the articles, all of them.
Thanks.
Yep.
He literally did call this a scam though, this fundraiser.
Yeah.
Yes, the gentleman with the hand up.
Vince Mao. This has been bothering me ever since I saw it in the presentation. I know, because I remember the newspaper articles at the time, that Corollas's waste that he was processing in Saugerties was already classified as hazardous by DEC. By DEC's own regs, if they allow anyone to move the waste, as you know, Chris, there's a very strict chain of custody for the paperwork. So if no paperwork exists, that means Corollas did it on his own initiative, which I guess wouldn't be too surprising, but it sounds like the assumption is that DEC approved it, in which case all you have to do is FOIA the trucking paperwork, and you should know exactly who and why they allowed it.
Well, yeah, normally there is paperwork for every load that's transferred. But, this goes back to my explanation from earlier. The DEC made an early determination that this material and this site would be exempt from the regulations.
Wait, at the Corollas site or at the?
No, at 10
Church site?
So they, and it doesn't make sense, so I'm not trying to make it make sense, because it doesn't make sense to me either. But what we're told, and what the DEC would tell you today if they were here, is that they made a determination that this was going to be exempt and therefore not subject to any state laws whatsoever. The DEC basically removed themselves from the situation. And they will tell you today that Corollas was within his rights to transfer up to 5,000 cubic yards of that material to Church because it was exempt.
Yeah, they were paid off.
But we don't have good answers, a good explanation. We have asked, for instance, you would like to know, well, what did the inspector see exactly when he went there to inspect? Because we can see it, we know what's there because we saw it when it was all excavated a few months ago. And, but there's nothing in the DEC's records either. They took no photos, they took no field notes, they took no samples.
Yeah, something stinks in Denmark.
Because they can't reclassify it in group. They can't know that it's hazardous waste at its origin and then follow the chain of paperwork to where the dump site is and the site is reclassified at the dump site. That's actually not within their ability to do that. There's no procedure for that. So I'm still really curious about what happened with DEC.
I think that's a really good question, and one which I think continues to be we need people to ask it.
Yeah.
Really, there's a chain of confusion which we need to have those questions asked.
Yes, the question was asked about the media covering it, and while we haven't like grilled Bill McKenna. Oh, I'm Felicia Kutchik from WIOFLP Woodstock 104 radio, over broadcast radio only, 104.1 FM. So we haven't like been grilling McKenna or anybody on this, but we do record each Woodstock Town Board meeting, and we play it back on the air. And that's like Tuesday night, that same night of the meeting at 9 p.m. or a little after if it's a long meeting, and then rebroadcast Saturday at 1 p.m. And you know, so you can hear the town board meetings then, whether we've recorded in person, which I prefer, or on Zoom. And also I recommend people please go to the town board meetings. If you do it in person, that's great. If you have to do it on Zoom, that's okay too. And you know, witness and be involved, and you know, public be heard is only 5 people, 2 minutes each, but it's something, and it's something to raise also. And then woodstockny.org is the town site, and you can possibly look up documents there, as well as perhaps the lack of some documents too.
My name's David. I'm the Amy's neighbour, and a lot of other people's neighbour. I share the property line with the dump and the Amy's. I just wanted to say really quick on the back of what you were saying with Protect Woodstock Water. We've worked very hard as neighbours to make a resource for everybody to come and access, which is sort of synthesizing a lot of what you've seen here. So if you want to share it with friends, I think the best way to get this out is communication with each other, and that's our sole goal with Protect Woodstock Water. It sort of got a bit murky what we were doing there over the Democratic primary, but I just wanted to be really clear while we have ears here. This is a community-based organization that really just wants everybody to know exactly what was in this film. I personally have sat in front of Bill McKenna. He wants this to be a civil matter. He wants everyone to go look the other way, but we need to really, as a community, put the pressure on and keep it, you know, keep the foot down.
He wants this to disappear, so that's not it.
And he's not being civil.
No, when I say civil, he wants us to approach our neighbours and try to get us to, and the city stays out of it. But as it's very clear, it is a city issue. That's the only thing that's going to get this cleaned up.
Anybody else? Anyone? Questions? Your name, please.
Catherine Slarkey from Lake Hill. I would just love to leave here with the 3 action points.
Okay, I'll give you 3 because that's what I was going to close with. But one more question, and then I'll say the 3 actions.
Susan Painter, I was just going to ask that everyone, please, everyone here, let your neighbors, your friends know that there's a viewing again next Saturday, same place, same time. And I've been sharing this on Facebook. I get yelled at a lot, but if we could all share it on Instagram and Facebook, and maybe David, if you could help us get out all the information from your group, because the burden has been on the Protect Woodstock Water neighbors, Julie, David, people here, and it's been the biggest burden on the Amy family, and we have to share this burden with them. So let's get the word out.
I think John has some, would like to say one more thing.
Yeah, I don't know if we're wrapping up or not, but I did want to make one point. The dumping occurred over a period of about 7 months, and there are actually 2 dump areas at 10 Church Road. As far as I know, only 1 dump area has ever really been acknowledged publicly. The dumping started in late 2019 and into January, and this dumping was on the far side of the property from the Amy's. After a few months, there was a lull in the dumping, and then by late March and April, they were clearing a new dump area on the Amy's side. And so that was eventually filled by July. So in these 7 months, there was an original early dump area that really hasn't been talked about publicly. It's never been tested to my knowledge. It was not included in part of the plans, so it's all still there to my knowledge, all this buried C&D debris. And so I think you can see why that's important. We're going on 4 years into this. We don't even know how much material is there. We don't know exactly where it sits on the property, what are the limits of it. And the little bit of testing that was done doesn't even cover that original dump area. So I don't think people know that, and it was only in the last few months that I've sort of pieced that together myself.
Yeah.
I think that's significant.
Yeah.
Just, okay, we have a few more.
Eric.
Eric?
I'm unclear, the owner at 10 Church Road, what was his original intent, putting the fill in there, just a level or to build up the area?
He wanted to build up a flat area so he could potentially hold events and just to increase his usable property. Like,
He wanted a front lawn.
he wanted a massive square footage to give himself a larger
Had he
acreage.
not,
Did he
how
get
could he be
paid to
so
take
out
it?
of touch with who Corollas was? How could he possibly?
Willful ignorance. They knew. They were friends. They knew each other.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it wasn't
that's
a stranger to him.
Was he paid off?
No, I don't think
this
so.
is not.
But he
we
got
don't
cheap
think so.
bill.
Before anybody leaves, I just want to
Wait, I
say,
want my 3 actions too.
next week, we have a hydrologist with 30 years of experience speaking. He's not as good looking as John, but he looks upon it, he's very professional, and he's dealt with situations like this before.
Paul?
Paul Rubin will be in the
He helped,
next
I don't know if
week.
you guys know about Terramore, but he helped us,
He was instrumental.
Yeah.
He's actually very.
Okay, so you could do worse than spend another hour here next week.
Okay,
At the
but
panelist
I just want to end the session by, what's your name again?
Catherine.
Catherine's question. What are 3 things that we can do right now to make this move forward? 1, there's a piece of paper, it says email on it. Put your name and your email on that list. 2, we have meetings, Protect Woodstock Water has meetings on Monday nights. And if you're on that email list, come to our meeting.
Great.
Our next planned event, besides our wonderful march, which we just came up with, is that we are going to make a showing at the Scarecrow Fest. And we need both ideas and help to get that happening. So that's something that and then number 3, I have 1, email, 2, come to a meeting with us, and 3, look at our, there's a bunch of cards there with our Instagram page. Look at our Instagram page, it's really beautiful, and it has incredible information, and send that to everybody you know.
And also the website, which has all the documents were shown in the movies that are easily shareable to any and everybody. The more people that know, the more pressure we can put on.
And that's
Can we link-
woodstockwater.com?
Protect woodstockwater.com.
Oh, right.
Can we link Chris's films to people that we know on a personal level?
That's a question for you.
Well, the film is going to be entered in various film festivals, and if I put it on the internet right now, Catherine, it doesn't qualify for some of the festivals. So what I'm going to do is I'll show it next week, and then I'm hoping to show it in a bigger arena, in a bigger place. Maybe like the community center or something.
I know that this is disallowed, but I'm gonna push
Go
it
ahead.
anyways. you know, when you live in a small town, the reason we're here tonight is because Chris and Eric bumped into each other in the health food store. And we're so overwhelmed right now with the town politics. We've been through an almost identical situation with all the same players. That's all I'm gonna say, exactly the same. Our marriage went through hell on earth because I know exactly what you're talking about, Frank. I could just burst into tears from being reactivated around how hard this kind of stuff is. Exact same three players. We're so overwhelmed with what's going on in our town now, but Chris said, Eric, this is really important, you've gotta be there. You guys have to come. And that's why we're here tonight. That's the level of personal, we still, thank God, thank the goddess, we have a web here in town. So I'm with you 1,000%. We need to all be talking to each other person to person.
Right. That's what
standing in front of the health food store. I volunteer for standing in front of the health food store.
We have a petition campaign. I just need people to do the petition.
Yeah.
Jordan, do you want to?
Well, I was just gonna ask if we did set up personal screenings. I don't know if it would mess up your application. Like, let's say I volunteered to host a screening in my home. Would that, and people volunteered to do like individual screenings in their homes, kind of sort of?
I love what's going on here tonight.
Yeah.
I really do. I love this. Is just a beautiful perfect group of people.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I can talk to you about that.
Yeah, let's talk.
Give you my email and we could talk a little bit. But
I
need to think about that.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Some people earlier in the production wanted to have screenings, in the homes, just a few of them to watch or a small group. But this is a community problem.
Yep.
It's a Woodstock problem. It's not just a Shady problem. It's a Woodstock problem. And I think we have to continue to meet like this, go out of our way. A lot of people had lots of things to do tonight and Saturday evening, I'm sure. But, we made an effort to get here, to get out of the comfort of our home and to come and change things and make Woodstock a better place.
But Chris, it's a real testament to your film, and this is a powerful piece of work. And I know with all that's going on in town right now, you could just lie down on the ground and weep, reading the newspaper. I think it's important to acknowledge how powerful a document this is, and you keep the showings coming. And I personally will, testify to people. You've got to make time to go see that, just as you did to Eric.
Word of mouth is best.
It is so
important. Have film will travel. If somebody, books a venue, give me a call. I'll be there with this film.
Okay.
Anywhere, anytime, any place, anywhere.
Yeah, and please, work with us. We'd love to produce this again.
Yeah.
So we would love to have this scene again.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that?